Today I will be changing brakes on a 2000 Buick Century. Next on the Bunk Ass Mechanic. Alright, first thing you're going to want to do is pop this hub off after you lift the car up. Get a jack stand under there. And pop this off with a screwdriver. These are plastic nuts that go around the lug nuts. And it's a 19mm. So you're just going to use a 19mm socket to get these off. The lug nuts themselves are also 19mm, so get yourself a breaker bar, or if you got an air compressor, use that. I have an air compressor. I'm just too lazy to drag it out right now. I'm only doing the front here, so let's get those undone, and then we'll get that tire off. Alright, I got the tire off the wheel, and you're going to use a 16mm socket to get this bolt out. I had to use a little bit of a W40, kind of loosen it up, and I had to use a mallet to be able to get this bolt to turn. A 16mm, and I just hit the edge of it this direction with a mallet. Had a bitch of a time getting this caliper off. I can see it's a little rusty under here. So there's a 16mm bolt there and a 16mm bolt there. So what I recommend is you can undo either one, but if you undo the top one first, alright, to remove this retainer that holds the rotors and the brakes pads, it's going to be two 15mm bolt sockets that you're going to use to get off the bolts. And I had a hard time getting it, so I had to take the socket, the ratchet, and use a jack to push it up, because it was locked in there very tightly. But you see I got it all out now, and I'm going to start reassembly. Alright, when you're going to install the new rotors, what you want to do is take some brake cleaner and spray down the rotor there, because it has a factory film, protective film on it from keep it from rusting. So you're going to want to get that off. Just spray it around, get a paper towel, just wipe it all down, and you're going to do both sides. Flip this over, spray it down, wipe it down, and that's done. You take this rotor, line it up with the studs, and then we're going to start reassembly. So just do everything backwards. The retainer clip, you're going to put it back in, and you're going to put the 15mm bolts in there, and then we'll move on back to the next step. Before installing any bolts back in, what you want to do, cover the bolts and some Loctite. This is let's see what here. Won't focus. It's nothing new with this camera. Permatex. You can get it in any parts store. It's just thread locker. Get the blue kind. Helps with vibration. Helps to keep the bolts from coming loose. Alright, the next step that you want to take is you want to get some lubricant, some brake lubricant. And you're going to smear it all over the back of the pad when you go to install it. And this will help with any kind of noises, squeaking, things like that. So it'll just help suppress that noise for when you put those pads into the retainer there. Okay, the next step, we're going to push this caliper back into its housing. You're going to use a C-clamp, just clamp around it, and you're going to push that in right here using this part right there. So just clamp it around, and you're going to push that in, and it's best to leave the cap open on the brake fluid filler under the hood, so that way the air can bleed up if any air needs to escape. Alright, while you're doing this, put the clamp on this side and push part in there. So you take an old brake pad and press it firmly against that piston. Push that piston in, and it should get it nice and flush, so that way you'll be able to put the whole caliper assembly back over the brakes. Okay, when you want to put the caliper back on, you're going to line these bolt holes up with where they go in here into these rubber boots, and just don't forget these pins here. So this one's going to go on the bottom here, through here, and then you got the one on the top. So just line it up, and then you're just going to put the bolts right through there. All right, that concludes one side done. Make sure all the bolts are nice and tight. Sometimes if you need assistance, I'll put the socket wrench there, and the ratchet rather, and hit the end of it. Just kind of give it that little bit of extra torque. Make sure nothing comes loose. You don't want anything to come loose on this. Be a big problem. All right, here's your final steps. Got the wheel back on. What you want to do is put the lug nuts on. Get them as tight as you can while it's still suspended in the air. And then go ahead and drop the car. If you have a jack stand under there, be sure to pull that out. And then go ahead and tighten it with a breaker bar. Do star pattern, so start here, there, then here, and here, and then there. And just keep going over until you get it as tight as possible. You don't want to really over torque it. You don't want anything to snap. And then just going to put this hub back on. These plastic nuts screw onto around here, so that way this hub lug doesn't get lost. And then I'm just going to put this centerpiece back on, and that'll be that side. And that's pretty much all I'm going to show. You just need to see one side. No sense in me showing two sides. And if you have a brake bleeder, that's a whole different story. I did bleed the brake on this side. I'm going to do the other side as well. It was really bad. This car, you could push the pedal all the way to the floor. I'm pretty sure there's probably no brake fluid in it, but I went in and pumped it a few times. It's got a lot of better response. And I'm going to go ahead and do the other side. So this is it's a pretty simple job. If you got the right tools and know-how and the will to want to do it, you can do it yourself. Don't pay some mechanic outrageous prices to get your brakes done. All right, so if you have any questions, anything you want me to make a video on, just let me know. Thumbs up, like, subscribe. I'd appreciate that. And that's pretty much it. And I'll see you next time.